This show does not constitute legal advice and is for educational purposes only. We are always available to field questions. However, until you have entered into a written agreement, your communications are not confidential and we are not acting on your behalf. Hi, thanks for joining us on Man vs. Land. Today's guest is Sharon Thorne from the Allstate Agency in downtown Plymouth. Sharon, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Sarah. I appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah. Why don't you share with us, who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Sharon Thorne, and I currently own the Allstate Agency downtown in Plymouth, but before that, I've worked for several different insurance agencies in the area, and I'm married and live with my husband, David. We live in Plymouth, and we have 2 kids, Isabel and Evan, who are all grown up. And I'm also a very very interested member of the Plymouth Rotary Club, and I enjoy that very much as well.
Sharon and I share that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm also a Rotarian. So today's topic is going to be insurance and just kind of the basics of insurance to make sure that everybody's kind of in the know. So why don't you start off and share kind of the Insurance 101?
Okay, well, insurance is a way for people to sort of transfer their financial catastrophe, if you will, to a third party, which is an insurance company. So you pay a small amount of money in premium, and the insurance company will back you up and pay the big dollars when something really terrible happens.
Yeah, very similar to health insurance.
Sort of, yes.
Sort of.
That's another discussion. Let's not go there.
Excellent. So most folks who own a home will have home insurance, homeowners insurance, because sometimes it's required by their lender if they have a mortgage on the property.
That's right.
Talk about the standard things, standard provisions, things that you'll see encompassed in an insurance policy for a property.
Sure. So, the standard thing is covering your home for fire. Fire, windstorm, lightning strikes, things of that nature. Those are covered on all standard homeowner policies. You want to think in terms of, what if the worst thing happens, my biggest investment in my life, what if it all goes away? Right. And so you want to make sure that you protect that, and the best way to do it is by insurance.
Excellent. So fire is one thing. We live in an area where we have lots of water around us.
Sure.
Talk about flood insurance and when that might be needed.
Okay. Well, flood insurance is usually when people have mortgages, if you are in the special flood hazard area, which is designated by FEMA, you are required to buy flood insurance. Flood insurance is provided by the federal government, but companies like myself, my agency, Allstate, and other companies out there will do all the underwriting and the paperwork. It just makes it a lot easier because we're good at what we do. The federal government may not be so good at doing those kinds of things and dealing with customer support and things of that nature.
Great.
But if you're in a flood area, you have the potential of being flooded out, you need flood insurance. Do not count on getting money from the government if you don't have that.
Right.
You really should have it. Some people are not in a high hazard area, and they can get a much better rate if they're in, say, a preferred zone. So it's not terribly expensive. The other thing is homeowners, if they are in a flood area, would consider probably hiring a surveyor or some sort of engineer who does elevation certificates specifically for flood insurance. And that can also save them quite a bit of money on flood insurance premiums.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen that happen quite a bit, that you're elevation-wise, you're not in a flood zone, but when you look at a linear map, then you may be in that zone. Yeah. So it's definitely worth it to talk to your professionals, your realtor, your insurance agent, your lender, to make sure that you're crossing all the T's and dotting the I's.
That's right.
When you talk about the disasters and things that may make your home unable to be occupied. How does the insurance help you if you have to move out of your home for
Yeah.
a repair period?
That's an awesome question. So there's a coverage on homeowners insurance policies. Some insurance carriers call it additional living expenses. Others call it loss of use. In essence, it's the same thing, okay? And so if you lose the use of your home because of a covered claim, so that's the key.
Okay.
It has to be a covered claim. So it can't be for something else that wasn't insured.
Okay.
So a fire, wind, you have a tornado, windstorm, hurricane, ice storm, or even say a roof collapse. If you had a pile of snow that you didn't clear off and it collapsed your roof, and you cannot live there safely, the insurance company will put you in temporary housing. They pay for it. Most have a dollar limit to that. Others have a time limit. So you just have to check with your insurance agent and ask them what their policy does for them.
Okay.
But that's actually a very important feature of a homeowner insurance policy. A lot of people aren't even aware they have.
And is that built into all insurance policies? Is it a standard feature? Is it something that you really need to make sure is there?
You really need to make sure it's there. It's not. I can't say it's in all policies.
Right.
There's different insurance products for property. There's dwelling fire policies. That's one thing. That's an old-fashioned kind of thing, but they're often used for camps. Somebody that doesn't have central heat, and it's seasonal use, things like that.
Sure.
It's a very basic type of insurance. Homeowners is more of a package, and so they throw in all kinds of things. Loss of use would be one of them.
Okay. Now, what about your contents? If your house burns down or if it's flooded and
Yeah.
you lose a lot of items?
Yeah, exactly. You insure your house, and usually with homeowners insurance, it comes with personal property or contents coverage. You want to make sure you have replacement cost coverage. It's not always standard with insurance companies.
Sure.
Some are optional, so you want new for old if you can get it, and it's not expensive.
Okay.
But yes, your contents would be covered under a homeowner policy for the same or similar coverages. So windstorm, theft, fire damage. Wherever there's fire, there's smoke.
Right.
That goes with it. Fire hoses that hose down, and
Sure.
they might put the fire out, but then they destroy the inside
Right.
because they had to use the fire hoses. So that is also part of your loss, and your contents, your furniture that gets all soaking wet and destroyed is covered.
And what's the best way to know how much property you have? How do you convey to the insurance agency or the insurance company what it is that you did lose?
Well, for personal property, it is interesting. The policy itself will have a limit. So number one, there's a maximum limit they're going to provide. If you're talking a really large loss, a water damage claim, windstorm or fire, the insurance company is going to ask you, okay, here's a piece of paper, write down everything that you had. Write down everything that was destroyed. And you have to remember, what it was, when did you buy it, maybe look up what the cost to replace it is today, in today's dollars. And they kind of take your word for it, for the most part. It's a felony to commit insurance fraud.
Yes.
So I'm a believer that most people tell the truth. So that's one of the things that I think most people will do. But they write it all out. It's an amazing process for claims. It's pretty involved. The people on the claim side are amazing adjusters. They're very good with customers. So it does work out, but it tests your patience.
Yeah, so that's probably something that you could be proactive about and have some sort of inventory already of your belongings.
Yeah. There's you can go videotape all your rooms. You could snap pictures and upload them. There's right now there's probably a number of different online sites where you can create an account. In fact, on Allstate.com, there's a place called Allstate Locker, I think is what it's called. And you create an online account, and then room to room, you can start taking pictures and you upload photos and stuff like that into that online site. So if your house should burn down,
Right.
you still have access to all those pictures. And some of it is, it might be to prove that you have what you say that you had.
Right.
Others are just for your own sake, to remember what you had.
Yeah.
When you have a total loss, and I've had several customers go through this, and it's horrible. You're not in the mindset. You're not going to always remember everything, and it could be months before you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot, about that. And so those kinds of tools are available to everybody nowadays. They're wonderful to use. They're awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about my own house, and I would never be able to remember everything that's in there.
No.
So you mentioned, we can kind of back up just a little bit.
Sure.
You mentioned the federal government, and then the local agent. And are there regulations that you kind of work within? You are a regulated and licensed industry. Right?
Yes, we are. Oh, yes.
Yep.
Insurance is a financial institution, so there are lots of oversight and lots of regulations. Primarily for the kind of consumer products, a homeowner is going to buy homeowners insurance or some sort of fire insurance, and so insurance companies or insurance regulations are managed by the state. They're all on the state level. So I'm licensed with the state of New Hampshire. Okay. What does that mean? That means that I can sell policies, I can consult with customers and give them advice, I can explain coverages and things like that to them. So my license gives me that ability to do that legally.
Right.
So it's all state regulated is what it is. Do that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to give some context as to where you're coming from.
We talked about the federal government. That was primarily with the flood insurance.
With the flood insurance, yeah. Okay. So you had touched on different types of policies, and that there was a fire only, and that was mainly for like camps and whatnot. So it's not an one size fits all. It's it's dependent on really what your use is of that property and what you need it for, and that goes back to talking with your agent and part of your home ownership team that they're going to advise you kind of the best product for what your use is.
Yes, and I encourage anybody to talk to their insurance agent, or if you don't have one, to look one up. And having a local agent is really important. Somebody that you can walk into their office, you can sit down face to face, eye to eye, and you really can get a lot more insight on information about things rather than, online stuff, it's too much. It's almost overload and often generic or misleading. When you talk with somebody local, they're going to be licensed in that state. They're going to understand the products that they're selling and can best explain it to you. There's products, the fire, the homeowners, but what about if you own a condo? What kind of insurance is that?
Sure.
What about a mobile home? Is that the same as homeowners?
Right.
Or not?
Right.
Is it? We don't know. Ask your agent. But so your agent's going to guide you, one, out of necessity, because that's how you have to insure that property, but two, who are you? What are you about?
Sure.
What's going on in your life?
Right.
Do you have a home office?
Right.
Do we need to cover that?
Right.
Is your husband a contractor and he's using your outbuilding for his workshop? Is that covered under your homeowners?
Right.
It might not be.
Right.
Ask your agent.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. And if you have workers there, if you have a nanny coming in, if you have landscapers, people, liability, it kind of in general.
Absolutely.
So what is covered?
Right.
So if you do have a total loss and your house needs to be rebuilt, what are the limits in which your insurance policy will cover? How does that? How do you determine, or how does the insurance company determine how much will be given? For that.
Well, it's you were starting at the end. The house burned down, and here's your policy already made.
Right.
Let's hope that you had enough coverage.
Right.
So it really kind of all started at the beginning.
Sure.
But so once the fire has happened, everything's just sort of like frozen in time. So you go to the policy. What does the policy say? What is that limit? And that's the maximum that's going to get paid. There are some carriers, Allstate's one of them. There are other carriers that do offer a little additional coverage if necessary due to unforeseen circumstances.
Sure.
But generally speaking, it's that limit. The next thing is, what was the house that you had? A lot of people tell me they might have this big house, they raised 3 or 4 kids, they have 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, or a big garage or a barn, and they don't need that anymore. If my house burns down, I'm not going to build it like this again. Well, you got to talk to the insurance adjuster if you're going to downsize. So the opposite's true. If you're going to upside, if you're going to go bigger,
Sure.
you need to pay the difference. But so the insurance adjusters are going to look at what you had, and that's sort of the limits of the policy and what was your house, and try their best to adjust it based on exactly what you had.
Right.
Assuming you replace it the same way.
Right.
And that's not always the case.
So insurance is proactive.
It should be.
Should be proactive.
Yeah.
So you want to talk with your agent about, what you have, and be open. I think it's a continuous dialogue as well, because you make improvements to your house. You add on to your house.
Yeah. I recommend people meet with their agent. We do in our office every year, maybe 2 years at the most. I say, you're going to get a call from us, and we're going to invite you in the office, and we want you to speak to me. And if you live far away, we can do it on the phone. But to have a conversation at least once a year, maybe every 2 years at the most, just a quick review, make sure things are in place. You haven't changed anything that's going to affect your exposures.
Right.
Uninsured exposures possibly, or underinsured. At the same time, there might be changes on the insurance level that you need to know about. So it goes both ways, but you have to be your own advocate with your own property and your own property insurance. And if you haven't heard from your agent in a year or 2, call them and make that appointment and sit down and talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I
That's
think
what they're there for.
it's a continuous dialogue.
Yeah.
It's your biggest investment for most people.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you're protected and insured.
Yes.
And not underinsured or not insured at all. So keep that dialogue going. Let's talk about some maybe hot button issues that you're experiencing right now.
Yeah, if I had to think about a question that's been asked more often, it's coming more frequently as well, and that would be people that might be renting their house out. If you move out of your home and you're renting it out, that's a very standard transition from homeowners insurance to some rental type of property insurance. So there are products for those. It's the ones that are doing the Airbnb thing. It's the ones that use these online sites, and they rent their house out a week here and a week there. Those are very unique, and they're not easy to insure. They are outside of the box and insurance companies, they live in a box. It's very structured, because we have to file contracts with the insurance departments of the states. We have to have the rules. All of those are laid out in advance, and when people use creativity,
we can't be creative.
It's very hard. We do move to it, and it is coming. There are the insurance companies are researching this and figuring out how can we meet our customers' needs and demands. Because if we can't do it, someone else will. It's ultimately going to happen, and we're a competitive business, so we want to do that, but it's not easy. And what I've been finding recently is the products that are out there available right now for the scenarios where you occasionally rent. You're not getting the best kind of insurance. It's very difficult to find. And I'd love to hear from anybody out there that's listening, that if you've talked to someone and they offer a homeowner type product or some really excellent fire insurance with good liability, that's a reasonable price. I would love to hear about it, because
Yeah.
I have customers asking me, and I can direct them to some place if I can't do it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you have questions or feedback on the Airbnb insurance scenario, definitely reach out to us on Facebook at Man vs. Land NH and leave comments there. And we'll get them to Sharon, and
Yeah.
she'll get them, she'll take that into account and see
Yeah.
what she can come up with.
Yep, definitely. No, that's probably one of the big hot buttons for active questions that are people doing that kind of stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some other things that you may need insurance for that you're doing with your house that you kind of like one-off scenarios?
Well, a home office is probably, people working out of their home.
Sure.
That's telecommuting and things like that. So
Okay.
homeowner policies, don't ever assume homeowners just cover stuff,
Right.
because it doesn't. You might luck out, but it doesn't always. Home offices are covered, sort of, yes, maybe a little bit, so it's always good to just check with your agent what the limitations are, and what are you doing in a home office.
Sure.
And there's limitations on your office equipment, and the laptops are a big deal.
Okay.
If you use your laptop for business
Mhm.
while you're in your home, you'll have a certain limit of protection in case it's stolen, or you had it plugged in and there was a surge and it blew up on you, or got damaged somehow
Interesting.
that way. You would find a certain amount of coverage for your laptop. But you take that laptop, which is portable, it's the home
Mhm.
idea of it, and you take it off your premises, and that coverage that you might have had is down to hardly anything.
Interesting.
Very important. So,
Wow.
like I tell people, as long as if you know about it,
Mhm.
you can mentally prepare yourself for.
Right, yeah.
What can you do about it? Can you change that? Maybe. It all depends. You really have to talk to your agent about your
Yeah.
specific case, your specific scenario,
Yeah.
and and let them ask you questions and kind of dive in a little bit of detail,
Yeah.
because they need to know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's better to ask the question and be prepared than to be sad if something happens.
Well, we have a thing, customers or, people are most disappointed with their insurance for a couple different reasons. One is, they find out after they've had a claim, there's a limitation or no
Right.
coverage at all possibly, or their premiums increase and nobody talked to them about it or explained why. Those are probably the two most common things that people will get really upset about,
Right.
So again, that's one of the reasons why we try to talk to our customers at least once a year, once every 2 years or so,
Yeah.
to just to try to explain those things or dive into the little,
Yeah.
what's happening, Sarah? What are you doing? I mean, you have a home office, so what
Right.
where are you covered
Sure.
for these things? So
Right. Yeah, open dialogue.
I can't help you if I don't know about it.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, just a quick story. This summer I had an event. I got married at my house, and I called my insurance company and I said, what do I need for this? And
Sure.
and they wrote just a small little policy that covered the event and any liability that I would have. And it was a smooth, very uninteresting event,
Yes.
nothing
Yeah.
bad happened, but it made me feel good to even just cut that small check to make sure that I was covered.
Right.
And I knew that I'd be taken care of. So
Well, that's good that you were, active in inquiring on that.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other little nuggets of wisdom that you want to share with us?
Nuggets of wisdom, let's see.
Right.
Well, I've said it more than once, to talk to your agent about it. It's really important to be your own advocate.
Honesty is the best policy.
It really is, because, they'll find out sooner or later.
Right.
We were talking earlier about the home inspections and things that
Yeah.
insurance companies do. It's not always the most pleasant part of, what insurance companies are about, but I mean, they're promising that they are going to possibly be paying out a large amount of money if something bad happens to your home.
Yeah.
And so it's the interest of the insurance company to inspect people's houses to make sure that they fit the mold.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just want to make sure that as a homeowner, the upkeep on your home, that you keep up with maintenance. If your house the paint is peeling or it needs to be restained, that you take some precautionary actions to take care of those things. If your roof is, before your roof leaks, to make sure you replace it if it's looking like it's worn and it needs to, it's been 15 years. It really should start. I don't care if your shingles are supposed to be 40-year shingles.
Right.
I don't know about that.
Sometimes they can last longer.
I'm
Sometimes
not a roofer,
lot
but
shorter. Yeah.
It can, and it depends on where you are. A lot of trees hanging over your roof and causing a lot of moisture issues with moss and lichen growing on the roof surfaces, and a lot of wind. Are you in a high elevation area where there might be a lot of wind? And so different homes could have the exact same roof, same year, but they're going to experience wear in a different way just because of their location.
Sure.
So, but just common sense kinds of things. Take care of your property. To just keep it properly maintained to avoid having a claim, because even though you have insurance, it's not fun. It's not a good experience to go through.
Right.
So
now, one thing that I did want to mention and go over in this, we don't have to delve into it because it's a much longer discussion. But when you had mentioned the replacement cost on a home, so they're looking at what is existing, right?
Yes.
And that replacement to rebuild it, which could be different than the cost to purchase a like home.
Absolutely.
And it could be much different from what you're getting taxed on.
That's absolutely true.
So
there's lots of different values for the same house.
Absolutely.
And so the insurance evaluation is reconstruction costs. And so because our function is to put you back to where you were. That's the whole purpose, is when you have a devastating loss, your house burned to the ground, we need to put you back where you were the day before that fire happened. And so we look at, number one, we got to clean up the debris. So that's also built into the dwelling limit. So a lot of people aren't aware, you insure a home for so many dollars, but maybe 10 or 15% of that is going to be accounted for debris removal. If you have an older home, maybe it has, some hazardous materials in it that cost more to truck out. Things like that. So that can drive the value or the cost up of the reconstruction values. But when I have my customers I talk to, I get their square footage figures. We talk about the type of construction. We talk about the interior features. Is it hardwood? Do you have vinyl or tile? Is your walls plaster or sheetrock? Are they painted, or do you have paneling? All of those things matter, because the job of the insurance company is to make you whole, put you right back where you were. So we will delve in a little bit deeper than a lot of places will, and just to get more accurate figures. Today we're finding the cost to replace a home is a lot higher than the cost to buy a home.
Yes.
And I'll ask people, well, if they're buying a house and they can't understand why I'm insuring it for so much more than what they paid for it, it's like, well, why didn't you build a house? Because it's too much money.
Right.
Hello. That's what we do. We have to build it. We can't just go buy your house.
Right, and that's a good reason to have that yearly or every 2-year checkup to make sure that you're insured for
the right value.
Yeah.
If you build an addition and didn't report it.
Yeah.
If you finish your basement and put in rooms and so on, or your garage you made into living space, all of that, that's going to matter.
Yeah.
And, you have to be proactive and report that. We're not there to report it to the tax man, We're here to make you whole. That's all that we want to do.
Right.
One of the hardest things, too, is I find with people, especially elderly couples, again, they might have raised their family in this big old farmhouse, and it had outbuildings or a big long, L with a barn on the end of it, and they will they wouldn't ever need that same kind of home, but I tell people, we insure the house you have, not the one you want.
Right.
So we still have to insure that house for that house reconstruction value.
Good information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the the lessons from today is talk to your insurance agent.
Yeah.
A lot. Be honest with what you have. I think that it's very important with your property, your home being, your biggest asset for the most part,
Right.
that you have all your ducks in a row, because you don't want to lose that with just...
Yeah. And you'll be surprised that most agents are going to feel, they care.
Yeah.
They want you to feel comfortable. They want you to, be in a good position, because the last thing, I ever want to do is tell somebody, I'm really sorry, you're not covered for that, or you don't have enough. Mm-hmm. Or you remember that time we talked about this and you didn't want to add it on?
Right.
I don't like to do the I told you so kind of thing either.
Right.
So, but it is, you do have to be your own advocate. If you don't hear from your agent, call them first.
Yep.
Book it today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
And local is better.
Well, it's interesting because a company, these big insurance carriers like an Allstate, one of the great things that I love about them is, yes, they are a huge national company. They're all over the place, but they still believe in the delivery of personal service on Main Street America, and that's kind of what I do. It's like what I like to do, and and I think most agents do enjoy that. Yeah. That kind of work.
Yeah, and you are you're in the community, you're ingrained in the community, and all of your customers and clients, and that's kind of where the personal touch comes from, and she's really looking out for you. She doesn't want to meet you in the grocery store and know that she just gave you bad news. So
yeah, I mean, you do what you do.
Yeah,
so.
It happens.
No, that's good. This is we always are happy to answer questions too.
Great.
Anytime somebody has that what if this, or we're doing that, it's always best to ask before something bad's happened. To make sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me, Sharon.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
This is fun.
Awesome. Well, Sharon Thorne from Allstate on Main Street, Plymouth. And if you have any questions or feedback on any of the topics that we discussed today, certainly reach out to us on Facebook at Man vs. Land NH, and we will get you answers. And thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.